been a week since the second Republican debate. Most have focused on who won. So let's take the opposite approach. Who do you think lost, Jim?
Well, I'll tell you what, and this is not new information because I've heard this on several media outlets. CNN lost. That debate format was just plain
The
stupid.
Democrats won.
Bob, Colin said this about you. Respond.
Oh, yeah.
What is
Yeah,
that?
who
What
cares?
is that?
It's
That
an
is the
election
dumbest
year. People
thing.
say things about other people
Isn't
when
that
they're running
amazing?
a campaign. That's what happens.
That is just that is.
But it
just,
all was about
It was all about trying
Trump
to
and what did Trump say about who? I'm like,
be.
really?
CNN was being a ratings whore.
Oh, it was terrible.
And that's different
Can you
from
say
most
that on
days.
television?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
All right, we'll find out. Yeah.
you know, Scott Walker, of course,
We'll
was
find
a loser.
out with the five.
Scott Walker lost.
Yes, Scott Walker.
There were several people that lost.
But I mean, here's the thing. There were 11 people on that stage. 10 of them ganged up on one.
Right.
And that's all that happened, and CNN fed that the entire time. And you never heard from anybody. Carly was probably the closest one who gave me any kind of an idea of what she stood for when it came to the Iran deal.
And that's because
You
she
know.
wouldn't take the bait and jump on
Right,
Donald
right.
Trump.
But, I mean, 10 other people besides Donald Trump, and I have no idea what any of them stand for.
Well, and I think that's a real
that's-
issue that
that's
we
terrible.
have. And I think it's being fed by the media basically because they're out for ratings. So we no longer have a debate about issues. So we don't know anything about the candidates. It's a popularity contest, and it's like a free-for-all brawl
Right.
to get ratings because, you have one particular candidate that just sucks up all the air in the room because he's louder, more boisterous than everybody else, and the media loves that.
And they put him right in the center.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Yeah.
So would you argue then, because I'm surrounded by right-wingers here, I'm assuming for the most part,
You might be going out on a limb there.
with
Yeah,
the,
I would say so.
I mean, with the recognition that it was 10 people against one, right?
And Trump still beat him.
Did Trump win?
Yes, he did.
I mean, can everyone say that Trump was
No,
the
I
winner?
don't think he
Because
won.
And
if we
depends on how
recognize
you
that this is a free-for-all for media attention, then obviously this one candidate trumped everyone else.
Well,
No pun intended.
In an idiocracy type of setup, yes, absolutely. He's the one who got the belt for being the loudest and most boisterous person. And I think that that's part of the appeal that Trump has to a certain portion of the electorate, is the fact that he is open, kind of will say whatever he thinks. Now, oftentimes he doesn't stop and think before he opens his mouth and drops a giant brick into it, but for whatever strange reason, that seems to be appealing to people. The sad part, again, I think, to me, is that the people who actually had anything to say about any issues were completely drowned out.
They were.
So, and I don't agree with them.
But the other-
I think that I certainly think that there are policy hawks on that at that table who have something to offer, and we've heard none of it.
Yeah. The other problem is that in some cases, when they were given a chance to talk about an issue, they failed. I think Ben Carson did poor
Yes.
in that debate. I really think he
Chris
did.
Christie did. Terrible.
He is on a slippery mud slope uphill at this point. Dr. Carson is,
Yeah.
and there's absolutely no
Well,
recovery
because
for
he
him.
said we shouldn't put a Muslim in charge of it.
Well,
No,
and
it has
also
nothing to do with that.
For his overall ability to respond to the political environment,
Especially
you
on
have
the national issues, especially or the international issues.
Well, if you saw his,
You
if
saw his
the-
weakness there.
You saw the conversation about autism this past week, and Mr. Trump goes on this rant about how he believes that vaccinations cause autism, but he also believes that vaccinations are important. So Mr. Trump's in favor of vaccinations, but a little bit at a time versus all at once, because if you give a kid vaccinations all at once, then they become autistic. And what's interesting about that, the only doctor on the entire panel
Right.
Didn't
A
stand up for
neurosurgeon.
you.
didn't say a darn thing until the commentator turned to him and he said, well, Mr. Trump makes a pretty good doctor, don't you think? And he's like, yeah, he's an all right doctor, and didn't have a word in edgewise about something that he actually had something to
Right.
say.
Now here's another interesting thing, and you brought it top of mind, and it's completely tangential to everything we're talking about. But every media person that I have seen talks about Carly Fiorina, they talk about Ben Carson, they talk about Jeb Bush, and they talk about Mr. Trump. What's up with that? Why are we putting him on that pedestal? Why is the media putting him on that pedestal?
For me,
even when they're yelling at him or
For
yelling
me, I
about him.
personally just feel like I would never want to be on a first name basis with him. So that's where I'm coming from.
So for you, it's a dig.
Well, for me, yes, absolutely.
Okay. I don't
I-
think it is for others.
He's not my friend, and if he invited me to dinner, I would.
He would probably say you were a
decline.
great lady, though, and because that's what he says about
Sure,
everybody.
sure,
right?
sure. I think you brought a very interesting point here, which is the general progression of political debate in American culture, and how debates are something you buy media time, right? Debates are sponsored.
Yes.
And having lived in the United Kingdom for a while, Parliament's live stream. We have the opportunity, British people have the opportunity to, whenever their representatives are in session, they can see every single second of it. We don't have that. We
Closest
really
we have is C-SPAN.
Well, and actually you
Exactly.
do, because C-SPAN does televise most debates
Well,
real
the
time, but
sad
nobody
thing-
pays attention to
The
it.
sad thing is that political debate is something that has to be pitched to media outlets, and rather than something that is an inherent rightful thing to present to the American
But is
public.
that?
But you're talking about when they're in session as opposed to debates, right?
in general? I mean,
I mean,
debates-
we don't. You're right. We don't have that. I mean, we have, live streaming from the Washington County Commissioners.
Right.
You can watch channel 25 to watch a city council meeting if you have cable. If you don't have cable, then you have to watch it on YouTube, whenever they decide to put it up.
But anything on
but-
prime time has to be exciting
Yes.
and
in order
yeah.
to get that prime time.
But we
spot.
also have a population that only 20% of them even go and vote, right?
Well, and the real issue, I think, is cultural, right? So I think that the media chases ratings because we have, as a society, become very dumbed down. And, if the part of me that is a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and I say that very lightly, would say that this is all a symptom of the Cold War. So during the Cold War, the Russians thought that they needed to control what people did. One thing that we figured out here is you don't need to control what people do. As long as you control how they think, then you don't have to worry about what they do, because they're going to do what you want them to. And I know that sounds very Orwellian, if you will, but we have built a society that is driven by completely meaningless things. And not to take away from what some people are interested in, but somebody will give you a synopsis of primetime show A, B, or C before they can tell you anything about what a particular candidate's policy standpoints are. And that's a really, really sad statement on our society.
So I would argue that the media is not that smart. I think ratings equals profit for them, and that's the only thing they're
No,
looking
and
at.
you're
They
absolutely
don't
right.
care
This is
what
not
they
a
put on
media-
their
this
airways.
is not a media
They don't care
problem.
what they put on their airways, as long as it's going to generate profit for the company. And that's a problem, because we've talked and we kid off camera on this show about we love to see a train wreck on the show tonight. In other words, two people getting into it. That's what they want every time, and that's why they put the vocal minority. They put the extreme left
because
and the
because
extreme
then you
right.
can use all those sound bites that they have to keep people interested
and
in
to
their next
enrage,
broadcast.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But
so
again, the
that's-
reason
sure.
this
I mean,
works,
that's marketing,
however,
man.
is this is what
what they
the
do.
public wants. This is what the public
I
wants to lap
only
up from a
disagree
bowl.
with you on one point. I do believe that the public drives the market, but I also think that it's a two-way street. I think as much as the public feeds into what they desire, which in my opinion, the public will desire whatever can produce the least amount of effort out of their part to go on and live their lives. But I also think that the media is very smart. I think that the media is the one that the media is a candidate that stands to win.
Yeah.
In all of this.
CNN won the other night, 24 million, right? It
I
wasn't as big as the Fox one, but it
also
was big.
easiest to cater to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
So perhaps who actually won in this debate is the lowest common denominator. Speaking of which, we're going to talk about a very low aspect of American culture. Next on the flip side, Bob will lead the discussion about heroin addiction in Hagerstown.